Our present exhibition here at Gallery Al-Quds is on classical calligraphy, which we have with a modern twist. In Arab culture, the writing of the word is equivalent to a godhead. It is very, very important. It is a way of praising Allah. It is a way of making prayer. It is a way of transforming the ordinary and everyday into the sublime. People think that calligraphy is a very set, Arabic calligraphy is a very set mode of creating. And there are very many rules. But the hand of the calligrapher is a very, very important part of this. And each piece of calligraphy is separate and different and actually contains the personality of the calligrapher himself. Now, just a little quick update on Arabic writing. The Arabic alphabet has 28 letters. It is generally written from right to left. There are diagonals which indicate short vowels, and those diagonals are placed like above or below the letter forms. And then there are dots, which are placed above or before the letters to distinguish themselves from other letters with similar forms. And many letters have 3 different forms depending on where they appear in the word. The beginning, the middle, or the end of the word changes the way the letter looks. So there are a lot of rules involved. But the most important rule to know about how calligraphy is produced is about the sense of proportion. The letters are divided into 2 main groups, perpendicular and horizontal. And everything depends on the scale of the first letter of the alphabet, which is called the aleph. The calligrapher creates a square dot formed by pressing the tip of a specially cut reed pen, such as this, to the paper. So here, for example, is one of the dot, and this may have been the dot that this particular piece started with. The dimensions of this dot determine everything else in terms of the way that the letters are proportioned. The height of the aleph, the first letter, can be anywhere from 3 to 12 dots, and the width would be equivalent to the width of 1 dot. So once that first dot is placed, then the calligrapher can go ahead and decide what he wants to do, how he wants to create his phrase. And this is where the creativity starts to come in. The calligrapher will have chosen a phrase from the Quran, perhaps. In ancient times, that was mostly what was done. In certain eras, there were things called tugras, which were mostly in the Ottoman Empire, in which the Sultan would write his name in beautiful calligraphy as a seal for official documents, deeds, that kind of thing. Now, in more contemporary times, calligraphers will use phrases from poetry, blessings of various sorts, pretty much anything that they want to beautify. The only other thing to know about calligraphy before we start looking at these things, there are various types, about 5 main types. And today we're going to be looking at 2. One of them is called Thuluth, which is one of the most common used in artistic calligraphy, and the other is Kufic, which is a much more squared form, which we'll see later, that people say might have been derived from the use of bricks in the ancient city of Kufa. Because of the Muslim Islamic prohibition of showing the human form and forms of life in art, calligraphy became the form in which things could be beautified, because in certain elements of calligraphy, the artist could then turn the letters into the forms of birds and flowers and many other living things without breaking that prohibition. Now, the artist that we are looking at today, his name is Nawaf Soliman, and he's Palestinian. He studied in Kuwait. This is actually a quotation from Khalil Gibran. "Life without freedom is a body without a soul." And in order to write this, he used not only the classical pen calligraphic reed, but he also uses a reed made of rubber. And that gives him the ability to press down and create these bigger, broader forms, and also to create the shading that you see in this. His other unique, more contemporary touch can be seen, hopefully it's very pale, on a piece like this. This is a very classical thing. It says, "In the name of Allah." You can see the letter forms for Allah. But he's given it his own touch by creating a background color of very pale blues and yellows. And he does this simply to create art and beauty. This is a piece by the Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish. And it says, "All of the hearts of the people are my nationality." One of the pleasures of looking at calligraphy, even if you don't read Arabic, is to enjoy it as an art piece and try to see where the gesture starts and where it continues, because it has to be one continuous gesture. So in this case, for example, there's an assumption that it maybe started here. You can see, first of all, the dot that probably created one of these dots would have been the one that would have set the proportional tone for the piece. And then here he might have come around like this and done this and come all the way around to create that one letter. This is simply says Palestine, Palestine. And again, it's done in that very contemporary mode where he can exercise a lot of control using the rubber stylus, where he's able to create the shapes and also with varying pressure, vary the tone and the color to create this feeling. He uses unusual coloration. Most calligraphy is done in blacks and blues with some red. Sometimes you see it in green, the traditional color of Islam. He, again, is using his artistic sensibilities in order to create a mood. In this case, these browns are, reminiscent of the soil, and it's also a kind of a modern contemporary look at the word Palestine, because a lot of times it's done in green because of the color, or it's done in red and black. Here we have an example of the Kufic. Very, very difficult to do. It requires not only a lot of pre-planning, but it is, he was telling me, the most time-consuming. This is a saying that says, God will give you plenty so that you will be satisfied. God provides for all your needs, as it were. And you can see the more blocky architectural format in this. We have one of the dots you can see here or here that would have set the proportion for the aleph and all of the other letters in terms of how high they can be and how wide they can be. And it's fun and enlightening to look at the two different pieces that are on this big red wall, to see really the difference in terms of the more, in a sense, even more cursive, and to use a Western term that doesn't apply. But you can understand this sort of flowing movement, much more curves in the piece, as opposed to this more blocky aspect that is used a lot in the Arab world. On architecture, it's carved into lintels. A lot of it you see on big brass trays, things like that. Whereas this is much more used in, for example, copying pages from the Quran, perhaps, or decorative calligraphy that might be turned into jewelry, that kind of thing. This is also a saying, if you be more thankful, I will give you more.